If you're taking the PL-300 Data Analyst exam, this guide will help you pass fast. I'm going to walk you through everything, what to study, how to prepare, and make sure that you're actually ready when you're going to take the exam. I'm also going to give you some insider tips from people who actually completed the exam and passed it, and I'll show you some of the biggest mistakes that cause people to fail, and it's very good to be aware of these things before you get started and before you spend money on this exam. So if you want to get certified and land a high-paying data analyst job, then do keep watching. But why even bother getting certified and taking this one in the first place? Well, if you know something but you can't really prove it, then people are not going to want to hire you and take that risk, especially at the entry level where so many people compete for various jobs. So PL-300 is actually the most popular certification for getting your first job in data analytics, and it's basically just one single exam, and once you do pass the exam, you're pretty much certified for a whole year, so it's a really good deal. And then you can officially call yourself a Microsoft certified data analyst. Just put that straight on your resume, which looks really, really nice. And don't worry, after 1 year, you can actually complete a quick checkup if you want to stay certified, even though when you have a job, it's not really going to matter that much if you're certified as an entry-level data analyst. So the renewal is free for this exam, which is also a very good thing. You don't want to have to pay for some expensive renewal. And the renewal exam is also way shorter and easier than the original exam, which just focuses on recent upgrades or kind of updates to the curriculum. So basically, once you have the PL-300 certification, you're pretty much good to go. All right, so the exam itself is going to test your ability to transform raw data into insights that businesses can use to make decisions. And that's the work of a data analyst. But for this cert, you're also going to be working with Power BI, and you're going to create some data visualizations like interactive dashboards. Now we're going to dig deeper into the exact skills and exam content later. But first, let's talk numbers. So the exam is done online, and all you need is a reliable internet connection to be able to take the exam so you don't drop off. And if you do prefer going to a physical test center and take it in person, that is also going to be an option for certain cities depending on where you live. And that can also be a good option if you're more focused in person, or if you just have a bad internet connection. You might want to go to an exam center and take it. And you have 100 minutes to finish your exam, and the maximum score is going to be 1,000 points for full marks. And the passing score, which you will need to succeed and actually get the certification, is 700 out of 1,000. And lower than 700 means not passing the exam, so you do need to reach at least 700 out of 1,000 to pass the exam. But after this video, that's not going to be a concern at all. So most questions on the exam are going to be multiple choice, and you're just going to have to click to select the answer. Really simple. And the exams are graded 100% automatically, and you're going to have the results back within 24 hours. Really simple. Now, when getting a certification, I do think that the cost is one of the most important things, because you don't want to waste money on something that's not going to be worth it. So the cert is $165 in the US, but it is going to vary depending on your location. So in India, for example, the cost is about 4,800 rupees at the time of this video, which is currently about $55. So what is going to happen if you fail the exam? Well, it's actually not the worst thing ever, but it will be pretty expensive. You can retake the exam after 24 hours after you have your first attempt and you fail it. But if you do fail again, you're going to have to wait 2 more weeks before you try again. And there is actually a limit, even though it's a pretty big limit. And you can try a maximum of 5 times in 12 months. My recommendation though is that, since there is a catch and each attempt actually requires you to pay the full price, whether you pass or fail. So I don't recommend trying too many attempts. Instead, I'll show you in the next section how to pass on your first try to actually save hundreds of dollars. Because if you do take 5 attempts, it's going to be really expensive. All right, guys, so now here's a summary of what the exam is actually going to look like. And there's going to be 4 sections in the exam, and we'll break them down one by one. But first, here are the sections. So section number 1 is going to be to prepare the data, and that's going to be 25 to 30% of your exam score. The next one is going to be model the data, and this part is responsible for roughly 25 to 30% of your exam score again. And part number 3 is going to move on to visualizing and analyzing the data, also 25% to 30% of your final score. And then part 4 is going to be manage and secure Power BI. And this part is 15 to 20% of the total exam score. So now we're going to go through what this actually means and what you have to learn. So we'll start with section 1 and then just go through all of the sections one by one. Section number 1 is prepare the data. And what does this actually mean? Well, here's how Microsoft describes it. So to prepare data, you'll get or connect to your data first. Then you'll profile and you'll clean the data. And then you'll transform and load your data so that you can start working with it. And that's going to be the preparation section, which is section number 1. So what about section number 2? That's called model the data. Well, basically, Microsoft wants you to design and implement a data model in their system Power BI. They want you to create model calculations using DAX and optimize the performance of your model that you created. And that's pretty much the section model the data. It's about creating a model and optimizing the performance of the model. Now for section number 3, which is called visualize and analyze the data, that's probably your favorite step if you're a data analyst. And it's quite self-explanatory, but you'll be using Power BI to create reports, improve these reports, making them useful for storytelling and, actually making them useful for companies and stakeholders, as well as identify trends and various patterns in your data. And then we're just moving to section number 4, which is manage and secure Power BI. Now, this section sounds a little bit tricky, especially if you're not familiar with the terms in Power BI, but it's basically just about Power BI features. And you'll be creating and you'll be managing workspaces and assets in Power BI, as well as securing and governing the actual Power BI items that you create. But again, this section is only 15 to 20% of your score. So the other 4 sections are going to play a much bigger role. And those are the 4 key areas that you need to practice before you get into the exam. It's going to be prepare, model, visualize and analyze data, and then manage and secure Power BI. And that's pretty much all the content. But knowing what to study is never going to be enough, because you'll actually need the right strategy to pass the exam. So next, we're going to break down the best study resources, the best prep tips, and exactly how to learn these skills in the fastest way. So the first and most official way to prepare is going to be through Microsoft's free short course. This course takes around 22 hours to finish, and will that be enough to pass the exam? Personally, in my opinion, definitely not. There's also a better way to make sure that you pass your first attempt, because as we talked about, Microsoft is okay with you taking more exams because you're going to have to pay for it every time, but you don't want to do that. So Microsoft also released a full PL-300 course, which is much more complete, and it's called the Power BI Microsoft Data Analyst Certificate. Now this one is also for beginners and takes roughly 5 months to complete at 10 hours a week. And even if most people do it way faster, you can take it in that time. But I would say that yes, most people actually do complete it way faster. And that is literally Microsoft's entire prep program for PL-300 available on Coursera. And just the final course is going to be twice as long as the other exam prep course. So comparably, you'll have a much better chance of actually passing the exam on the first try. So here's exactly what I would do. If you already have Power BI experience, then I think it's okay to take the shorter option, just to kind of brush up on the skills and make sure that you have everything specific to the exam nailed down. But as a complete beginner, this program is going to be much better, the more lengthy program, to actually pass on your first attempt. But wait, there's also a missing piece that we never talked about, because Microsoft actually created a free practice assessment that anybody can take. And this gets you familiar with kind of the wording and the questions that they may ask. And you may also notice some gaps in your learning instead of having to fail the test and then realizing it later. There's also going to be an exam sandbox, which I highly recommend, because when you get into kind of a situation where you're taking an exam, you might be a little bit stressed. And this one is going to simulate the exam experience, because you really don't want to get stuck with some technical problems or difficulties when you're taking the real exam that you actually paid for. And then finally, Microsoft also put out some PL-300 prep videos with some more tips and strategies. I would check them out as a bonus, but I don't really think they're the best and they don't really replace actual studying. Before you try taking the exam, I want you to listen to this. Hundreds of people are passing this exam every single day, and with the right strategy, you can do it too. So good luck, and I'll list the resources mentioned in the description below, and yeah, best of luck.